Question 5, and it's the one everyone loves. It's drawing the activity networks. Just a reminder when you're doing this, like sort of do a rough one in pencil first, and then do a nice neat one because you know it's easy to make mistakes and have to rub them out and do that. All right, so question part A is drawing the activity network. I can see that A and B can start straight away, so I'm just going to draw them starting straight away. I tell you what, I'm going to just do this underneath there so I can see the table as I go. I'll shrink that down a wee bit. That's big enough. Okay, and I'm going to draw this underneath so I can see the different bits. All right, so remember, it is the activities are arcs, not the vertices. So I'm going to start just at a dot. In fact, I'm going to call it number 1 because I like calling numbers. Doesn't really matter too much about these numbers, but you know, it's nice to have them on there. And I can see that A and B can start straight away. So I'm going to start A down there with an arrow, and B over here again with an arrow on it. Okay, so looking ahead, I can now see that C and D depend on A on their own, but E depends on A and B together. So I need to have A finishing on its own somewhere, but I also need to have A and B finishing together somewhere. So here is A finishing on its own, okay, and the way to get A and B to finish together is to finish B off down here, and then to make a dummy go down there, okay. So at 2, I've got A's finished, and at 3, I've got A and B are finished. So that means I've got C and D that need to come out of this 2 here. So I've got C and I've got D. And at number 3, I've got E needs to come out of there because E needs to come out of where A and B finish. Right, so looking ahead to my next 2 tasks, I've got F, which depends on C only, and G, which depends on C and D together. So I need to do a similar thing as to what I did before. I need C to finish off on its own, but I need C to finish off with D, so I'm going to have admittedly a very small dummy, but I've got a dummy there between 4 and 5. That means that I can have F coming out of this number 4 because that's where C finishes on its own. I can have G coming out of here because that's where C and D finish together. Okay, I've now got H and I, which both depend on E and E alone. So, number 6, and I've got H, and I've got an I down here. Right, I've now got J, which depends on H and I. Now, a common mistake people do here is they just say, right, well, H and I, they're fine, they can just go together because they don't need to be linked in with anything else. But because H and I have both started at number 6, they can't both finish at the same point. So you just need to finish off one of them down there. Doesn't matter which one, okay? And let's just draw H going over here for number 8, and then just draw a dummy going up there so that you've got H and I finishing together at that number 8. Okay, and that is it. The only reason that is because they're not allowed to have the same start and finish point. That leaves J free to come out of here. And lastly, I have now got K, which depends on F and G. Now I can finish off F and G together because F started at 4 and G started at 5, so I'm just going to bring them together there to a number 9, meaning that K can come out of this one. Okay, and then just at the very end, tie up any loose ends. I've only got 2 loose ends here, these 2 activities, so I'm going to finish them off at number 10. And that is my activity network. Like I say, in an exam, I would tend to do that in pencil first and then do sort of a neater version. But as I've written it there, it would still get full marks. Okay, part B says explain why, in general, dummies may be required in a network. Now, we've got 2 reasons for dummies. I've got the one between 2 and 3, which was what the dependence reason, that the C and D needed the A, and E needed just, C and D needed A alone, whereas E needed A and B together. And I've also got the one between 7 and 8, which is the one where, because they're not allowed to start and finish at the same time. All right, so writing that up, a dummy, so I'm going to do the first type first, where it depends on different activities, may be needed if an activity depends on another activity alone. If an activity depends on another activity alone, but another activity, it's harder to do the general ones because like you end up just kind of waffling on saying words. But anyway, but another activity depends on that activity and combined with other activities. I don't really like that sentence. I'm sure the English is not brilliant, but never not combined with other activities. What I'm going to do as well, just to make my point really clear, because I know certainly in the mock exam when I was marking these, some people sort of had the right idea but just didn't explain it very well. I'm going to give it an actual example of doing that based on the one that I've drawn. So, e.g. in my diagram, and it was between 2 and 3, wasn't it? The dummy between 2 and 3 was needed. Between 2 and 3 was needed because C and D depended on A alone. C and D depended on A alone, whereas E depended on A and B. On A and B. Okay, just so, you know, obviously that's a lot for just like one type of it, but just to make sure you get the mark, it is kind of make sure you explain enough things on there. Okay, we've then got the second reason, another, and this is basically the sentence that you memorize, another reason for a dummy, and it's, you know, to avoid two things starting and finishing at the same place, but the posh way we've got of saying that is so that activities can be defined. I learned to spell activities. Activities can be defined uniquely in terms of start and finish events. Like I say, that's just a posh way of saying that, you know, there's no two activities that like are between the exact two same numbers. Again, I'm just going to put example and then refer back to my diagram, the dummy between 7 and 8. Example, the dummy between 7 and 8. And that is it. We've done part A, we've drawn the activity network, and we've explained our dummies. That is question 5 completed.